What happens when a long-buried secret suddenly resurfaces, threatening to shake the very foundation of the British royal family? Just recently, a shocking DNA test result has come to light, and the one most deeply affected is none other than Queen Camilla. According to never-before-revealed claims, this is no baseless rumor, but a legitimate DNA test directly connected to Princess Diana and a secret child never mentioned publicly. What could have driven Camilla into such a state of despair that she reportedly withdrew from royal duties? Could the existence of this child, if truly Diana's biological offspring, upend the line of succession and expose dark truths the royal family has fought to keep hidden for decades? The question is no longer, is it true, but rather, why is the truth coming out now? Join us as we uncover the shocking truth behind the DNA result that has rocked the United Kingdom and pushed Camilla to the brink of collapse. It occurred behind closed doors, where all royal earthquakes start. Queen Camilla sat in a private drawing room at Clarence House, surrounded by a small group of senior staff and legal advisors. There was a manila folder in front of her unmarked, discreet, the type of envelope that always contains the kind of truth that no one wants written down. Inside was a DNA report, verified, stamped, irrefutable. What about the name at the center, Diana, the Princess of Wales? Camilla had hardly finished reading the first page. Her fingertips trembled. Her face had lost its color. And then, without warning, she collapsed on the floor. Royal aides raced to catch her. Security cleared the wing. A palace doctor was rushed in. The moment was quickly labeled as the type of internal disorder that the crown was designed to suppress. But the harm was already done. Because what Camilla read that morning was more than simply a scandal. It represented a major shift in the royal bloodline. According to the report, a 38-year-old man, previously unknown to the public and living a tranquil life under a different name, provided a DNA sample as part of a private legal investigation. The lab, which was contracted secretly through royal middlemen, assumed it was a formality, a paternity challenge in a closed case. Just another whisper drowned out by the firm's never-ending damage control machine. However, the outcomes were undeniable. Diana, Princess of Wales, had a 99-point match, a match that should not exist, a match that rewrites everything. Camilla had feared many things during her reign: public hate, tabloid scrutiny, and her precarious position beside King Charles. But she never dreaded this. She never dreamed Diana could find a way to reclaim the throne 28 years after her death, not through revenge, not through legacy, but only through blood. And now, as the palace braces for the fallout, the crown is rushing to stop a story that may already be too big to ignore, because if Diana had a secret child, one raised away from the Windsors, what does that entail for the line of succession? What does this signify for Charles? What does this mean for the Queen, who is now lying breathless in her drawing room, clutching a truth she never expected? This is not simply a scandal, this is a reckoning. The monarchy may never be the same. Before the gowns, the global renown, and the tragedy that froze her name in time, Princess Diana was a girl hiding in plain sight. Her life was never completely private, even before she became the most photographed woman on the planet. Despite the scrutiny of royal biographers, tabloid journalists, and palace watchers, there are still parts missing, fragments of time she never explained. Moments that faded into history without a trace. And now, in the aftermath of that shocking DNA discovery, those forgotten months are being re-examined with forensic zeal, because it turns out Diana did in fact disappear from the public spotlight for an unusual period in the early 1980s. Specifically, between her engagement to Charles in February 1981 and the birth of Prince William in June 1982, there were the usual explanations: a desire for relaxation, a dislike of media pressure, and sensitive royal etiquette. However, the timelines don't quite add up. Appearances were canceled. Foreign travels were postponed. Diana's retreat from public visibility was particularly noteworthy, given that she was supposed to openly represent her new royal role. The palace said she was exhausted. Friends said she was distressed. However, some insiders suspected something far more sophisticated. Rumors began to circulate. Quiet ones, nothing that would ever make it into print. Diana had built a profound emotional bond with someone during her pre-royal years, a man near to the palace, possibly part of the royal staff or medical professionals. She had trusted him at her most vulnerable moments. More ominously, this connection may have lasted longer than anyone realized, even into her early months of marriage. At the time, no one was willing to tackle it, not with a wedding around the corner, not with all eyes on the young bride-to-be. The image of Diana, sweet, innocent, and virginal, was critical to the crown's survival. Was it possible she had a lover? Or worse, a child unthinkable, unacceptable, above everything, unpublishable? Some of the questions were hidden. The palace continued to operate as usual with silence, distraction, and carefully selected photo opportunities. Diana, whether out of obligation or sadness, never spoke about that time period. She moved forward, married Charles, produced an heir. She played the part, even as it ate away at her. But the missing months, the holes in the royal timeline, never went away. And now, decades later, they're being reassessed from a whole other perspective, because what appeared to be seclusion is now perceived as a cover-up. What appeared to be royal discretion now feels like purposeful deletion. Could Diana have been pregnant before William and had a child in secret? One idea that has persisted in recent years, quietly among only the most daring investigators, is that Diana may have had a secret pregnancy during her early years in the royal family. Whether from a previous relationship or one repressed by the firm, the child may have been abducted at birth, adopted under a false identity, or even hidden abroad. What's the motivation? Preserve the crown, protect the image, prevent pandemonium. And now, with DNA proof emerging from a man claiming to be her biological son, those previously disregarded rumors seem disturbingly possible. A man of the approximate age, who grew up with loose ties to wealthy British circles but no known parentage, who recently sent a DNA sample to a private testing laboratory for personal reasons, sparking a royal outcry when the results revealed a direct maternal link to Diana Spencer. It is no longer simply speculation. It is science. The lost months in Diana's story are no longer a mystery. They could be the key to a royal secret that Buckingham Palace believed would die with her. For decades, Princess Diana's tale has been told in full: her marriage, motherhood, heartache, and legacy. The world has followed her every move, memorized her words, and lamented her death. But behind the images and fairy tale plot, one chapter is notably absent: a child who has never been introduced, never seen. Nothing was ever spoken about it until now. The thought that Diana had a third child, born in secret and raised away from the public and the palace, sounded like pure conspiracy tabloid fodder, a delusion created by those who refused to let her go. However, as whispers turn into patterns and documents emerge, that dream begins to resemble a dangerously buried truth. Royal insiders now point to a few critical moments in which Diana appeared troubled by something left unsaid. In private letters to friends, she hinted at a loss I never named. In therapy sessions that were eventually leaked to the press, she spoke of betrayal, being forced to forget, and fearing what would happen if the truth was out. At the time, it was supposed she was referring to her treatment by the monarchy or her failed marriage to Charles. But in retrospect, those cryptic sentences take on a deeper, more intimate tone. There were stories, never confirmed, of a young woman being sent away for several months on the palace's orders. Some claimed she was a body double. Others alleged she had artificial insemination for fertility testing in a research trial with loose ties to the royals. Stranger still were rumors that Diana's eggs were used with or without her knowledge in a controlled experiment to assess her ability to create royal successors. Far-fetched, perhaps. But then came DNA, and all of the notions that had previously been easily discarded became less so. The man at the center of it all, now in his late 30s, claims he had no idea who his biological parents were. He was raised abroad and had always been told he was adopted. But as he grew older, he began to suspect more: his features, habits, and even a remote link to aristocratic circles all led to the same place, Britain. And one woman, Diana Spencer, when he submitted his DNA for a normal genealogy test, The findings revealed more than just a basic British pedigree. They pointed directly to Diana's genetic line, a match so precise, so apparent, that the lab reported the findings as a possible international abnormality. Further testing, which was surreptitiously commissioned by third parties, revealed solely the maternal match. However, there was no record of the man's birth in any royal archives, no announcement, no hospital logs, no official documentation tying him to Diana at all, because this is the child who has never appeared, no christening, no titles, no public role. The thought of Diana having a secret child is unsettling. The palace was aware of this truth and actively worked to conceal it because this was more than simply a personal secret. This was a mystery that may unravel the royal bloodline. The report was supposed to remain confidential, a calm formality every year. Private investigators, aristocratic solicitors, and royal fixers do countless covert background checks. But this one was different because this time the DNA sample not only hinted at a scandal but confirmed it. In early 2025, a well-dressed man in his late 30s, known only to the testing facility as Subject 7A, sent his DNA to a prestigious private ancestry and kinship firm in Geneva. He claimed no pressing issue, only curiosity, adopted at birth. He had no clue of his biological parents. He was looking for medical history, which could provide clues to his identity. He wasn't expecting fireworks nonetheless. The fireworks arrived. When the results arrived, they were not ambiguous. They indicated a 99.9 maternal match to Diana Frances Spencer, the late Princess of Wales. Initially, the lab personnel assumed there had been an error, a mix-up, fraud, but subsequent study, retesting, and cross-referencing with Diana's retained public genomic information, used for forensic purposes following her tragic 1997 accident, all yielded the same result. This man shared her DNA fully. Irrefutably, the news was so stunning that the laboratory's director surreptitiously notified a contact with MI5 ties, a back channel that is commonly employed in cases involving sensitive national identities. That's when the royal household became involved within days. Representatives from the royal legal team had obtained the report. Confidentiality agreements were struck. Staff were subjected to rigorous non-disclosure clauses. Subject 07A was covertly monitored, watched, but someone slipped. And that is how the file came into the hands of Queen Camilla. She received it early in the morning, expecting another round of usual briefings. Instead, she opened a plain envelope containing only 3 pages, clean, clinical, and terrible. There was the subject's name, his age, his general upbringing, and at the center of it all was Diana Frances Spencer. With a 0.9% maternal DNA match, Camilla's aides claimed her hands shook. Her voice faltered. She muttered, "No, this is not possible." Then, as the room became blurry around her, she slumped. She regained consciousness a few minutes later. But everything had changed because this was not a rumor. This was neither idle chatter nor a supermarket tabloid headline. This was proof evidence that Diana may have had a secret child. Proof that the monarchs may have conspired knowingly or unknowingly to conceal it. Proof that a quiet individual, unknown to the world, could be Prince William and Harry's unrecognized sibling for Camilla. The consequences were disastrous if the world found out. All she'd worked for, her precarious standing, her decades-long search for legitimacy, and her strained acceptance by the British public could evaporate quickly. Because Diana had returned not as a ghost, but as blood, and Buckingham Palace was about to confront an unprecedented reckoning. For years, Queen Camilla believed that the ghost had been buried. She had endured the jeers, the side-eyes, decades of being labeled as the other woman in a love triangle that spanned the front pages of every newspaper on earth. She had patiently waited as Diana enthralled the globe even after her death. She had smiled through public silence, survived cold welcomes, and after all of the suffering and public scorn, she had been anointed queen consort alongside Charles. However, one document, one day result, threatened to take it all away. She broke, said one royal aide, requesting anonymity. It wasn't all tears. Panic ensued. It was rage. It was fear. Camilla passed out in Clarence's house after reading the DNA findings when she awoke. She allegedly questioned the room. Does anyone else know her voice was soft, strained, and afraid? She was not concerned about science. The science was undeniable. She was concerned about the world's reaction. Camilla understood better than anyone that Diana was more than just a former princess or a tragic character. Diana was mythical, eternal, a symbol of innocence, suffering, and grace. And if it was discovered that Diana had a secret child, an actual, breathing manifestation of her legacy, the public sympathy would flood back to her like a tsunami. It didn't matter that Camilla was suddenly queen. It wouldn't matter if she'd waited decades for the crown. Diana's child, Diana's blood, would destroy her. Camilla was concerned about far more than just negative headlines. She dreaded the complete breakdown of royal stability, public outrage, demands that this son be recognized as the real heir, pressure on King Charles to meet with the individual. There have been whispered questions about the monarch's legitimacy, particularly in light of recent controversies and familial splits. She understood the people would not simply embrace this man. They'd anoint him. Already, analogies were being made behind the palace walls. He looks like her, one employee commented. It's unnerving. The same cheekbones, same smile, even the way he tilted his head while speaking. It was as if Diana had been resurrected as a man, wandering freely in the world. Camilla was reportedly furious at Charles. He did not orchestrate anything. He simply said nothing, according to insiders. Charles became frigid after hearing the news. He withdrew, taking lengthy walks through Windsor Gardens and declining meetings when Camilla asked what they were going to do. He allegedly said, "We'll do what we always do, nothing." Camilla considered that a betrayal because in this circumstance, silence would not save them. Silence would only allow the ghost to speak louder. Camilla felt the floor beneath her feet shift for the first time since she had worn the crown. All of her attempts to reinvent herself, all of her hard-won acceptance from a skeptical public, all of her years spent restoring trust were jeopardized under the shadow of a lady who had died nearly 3 decades previously. Except now, Diana wasn't a shadow, she was a sun. And for Queen Camilla, that was more horrifying than any headline could ever be. As soon as the DNA findings were confirmed, Buckingham Palace transformed into a fortress of silence, not stone. Meetings were held in shadowed corridors. Telephones were confiscated. Doors that were ordinarily left open were closed, guarded, and monitored. The palace has previously faced scandal affairs, abdications, and even a royal interview that destroyed a family, but this time was different. This wasn't a rumor. This was proof. And the repercussions were more than just personal, they were constitutional. If Diana had a surviving child, and that child was biologically hers, confirmed beyond doubt, the royal dynasty itself might be put into question. The press had no way of knowing, people couldn't find out. Not yet. Not while the crown was scrambling to defend itself. The first priority was containment immediately following Camilla's fall. A group of trusted aides launched what insiders refer to as the Windsor Protocol, a rarely utilized crisis response plan and designed to ruthlessly shut down leaks. The DNA report was seized. Any digital traces were removed. The private Swiss lab that conducted the test was paid a 7-figure fee and served with a perpetual gag order, courtesy of the royal legal team. The second priority was surveillance. British intelligence discreetly monitored the individual, now known as Subject Alpha. Not to damage him, not even to intimidate him, just to follow him, his online activities, his communications, his travel plans, everything. A source familiar with the operation confirmed. He is not a threat, he is a variable, and variables are dangerous. The third priority was silence. The Royal Communications Office went into emergency lockdown. Journalists who had even a whiff of the story were approached personally. Some were warned. Others received incentives, a surge in NDAs, sealed court records, and sudden technical issues in newsrooms sparked concerns among a few senior editors. But no one dared to go too far. The idea was straightforward. Buy time. Time to decide what to do if the story leaks. Time to examine the man's motives. Time to plan the king's next move, or lack thereof, however. Not everyone inside the palace was in accord. According to reports, Prince William was quietly outraged that he had not been notified earlier. Kate, ever the diplomat, allegedly advised calm while questioning why she and her husband were kept in the dark. Some senior royals believed that the longer the truth remained hidden, the more dramatic the impact would be when it was eventually revealed. Even Princess Anne, who is known for her unflinching commitment to the firm, supposedly said, "We've survived worse, but we've never survived Diana returning." Camilla remained motionless in the midst of it all. Her normal control, her ability to handle stress with grace and grit, was broken. She had become a spectator to the unraveling of the very institution she had battled so hard to be welcomed by. Because the problem was more than simply one secret child. The problem was that Diana's son had something that the palace had not anticipated: truth. And the world adores truth, especially when it bears Diana's face. The panic machine was operating at full capacity, but even the firm knew they couldn't outrun the blood for weeks. He remained a shadow, a name buried in a sealed file, a man pursued, silenced, and contained, but quiet, like secrets, cannot remain forever, especially when the truth is written in blood. On a frigid spring morning, a video surfaced online. It was simple: no logo, no branding. Just a man in his mid-30s seated in a modest room. Behind him stood a bookcase, a framed photograph of the English countryside. He didn't resemble royalty. He appeared to have lived a tranquil life until the truth arrived and refused to leave. "I wasn't born to start a war," he explained. "I was born with no name, without a tale. But I believe I have found it today." There was no drama, no claim to authority, no demand for money. Just one line sent shivers across the globe. "My mother's name was Diana. I believe she wanted me to know." The video spread like wildfire. It was uploaded to a private website and then circulated by anonymous accounts on social media within hours. Millions of people had downloaded, mirrored, translated, and viewed it. Palace attorneys attempted to pull it down. Tech businesses objected, but it was already too late. The likeness was disturbing. He had Diana's jawline. Her eyes were gentle and downcast, her cadence soft, careful, and genuinely human. He spoke with humility, not hunger. He didn't want a crown. He didn't call himself a royal, in fact. He denied all titles. "I do not want to be a royal. I do not want land or ceremony. I just want everyone to know she exists in me, that her love, in whatever form it took, was genuine, and that I was never a secret, just someone they preferred to forget." There was no mention of King Charles, no accusation, no demand. However, the message was clear: he was Diana's son. And suddenly the entire world knew. The public's reaction was instantaneous. Hashtags exploded. Comment sections were packed with emotion. Thousands said they had always suspected there was more to Diana's story. Others demanded that DNA evidence be released. A rising number of people began demanding that Prince William and Prince Harry acknowledge their brother, if not officially, then privately. And through it all, the man stayed composed. He concluded his statement with a line that appeared to address not the monarchy, but the mother he never knew. "I do not need a throne. I only needed the truth. I hope wherever she is proud I found it." The video faded to darkness for the first time in decades. The Globe did more than just mourn Diana's death. They met the side of her that she had never shared. The chandeliers inside Buckingham Palace continue to shine. The guards are still marching. The crown is still sitting on velvet and gold. However, behind those polished traditions, the foundation has broken. Because no matter how expertly the monarchy has handled scandal, it was never prepared for this. A challenge not from politics or the press, but from inside the bloodline itself. Diana's secret son has not claimed a title. He has not requested a seat in the royal succession. However, he has done something much more destructive to the monarchy. He told the truth. And today, that fact looms over the firm like a storm cloud, silent, heavy, and impossible to ignore. Queen Camilla remains out of the public eye officially. She is believed to be resting. Unofficially, Insiders say she has crushed her position alongside Charles, more precarious than ever. All of her efforts to emerge out of Diana's shadow have been undone by a single revelation, not because of a rumor, but because Diana left behind something genuine: a son, a voice, a legacy that cannot be buried. King Charles has stayed mute, but insiders close to him claim he has acknowledged the situation behind closed doors. He reportedly met the man alone. No cameras, no aides, just a quiet moment with a father figure and the echoes of the woman he previously couldn't hold on to. Even the general population is divided. Some advocate for acknowledgement, others seek a probe. Many people simply want what Diana desired for herself to be seen, heard, and free. Prince William and Prince Harry have not published any statements, but the world is watching them more intently than ever. Will they stand by the institution? Will they embrace a brother who has their mother's eyes? And what about the monarchy? Can it withstand such a devastating revelation? This is more than just a procedural crisis. This is a crisis of identity, of inheritance, of love for generations. The crown has used blood to justify power, but today, for the first time, that blood is calling it into question. And while the palace prepares for what comes next, one thing is certain: Diana's narrative isn't finished. It lives on in remembrance, in mythology, and now in the man who bears her name without requiring a title. The throne may still stand, however. It has been separated by blood, and the echo of the truth will not be silenced again. Though the truth behind the DNA results remains unclear, one thing is certain: secrets, no matter how deeply buried, have a way of resurfacing. The story of Princess Diana's secret child is not just a shocking twist for the British royal family, but a powerful reminder of the cost of concealment and the long-lasting ripple effects it can have across generations. Camilla may be the first to feel the impact, but if this revelation is proven true, it could trigger an unprecedented crisis for the monarchy. What can we learn from this gripping tale? That honesty, no matter how painful, is the only path to healing and moving forward. Whether royal or ordinary, everyone has shadows in their past, but only by facing the truth can we ever be truly free. If you found yourself captivated by this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next shocking twist. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think will happen next?